Now, Sonia, are you middle school or high school?
High school, girl, high school. Oh my goodness, girl. They came back and I'm like, Jesus, why? They were ready. They were ready though. They were ready, Freddy. So I had to get my cup of coffee in me real quick, because they came back in like they was in charge of the school. It was so funny, like they was in charge.
What grade level was this, Sonia?
Grades 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't ever, they're not like puppies. They don't ever lay down and just let you scratch their bellies, do you? You got to beat them, you got to whip them every day.
I mean, it's gonna take us, I know, a good 2 weeks. And see, with our school, we're constantly getting new students. I mean, every day, because by us being an alternative school, our enrollment is just constant. We never know when they're coming.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to establish a consistent culture when you have new ones coming and the old ones going all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my jobs, alternative schools were under me, and one of my positions, that was one of the divisions that I was over. Telling you, it's hard to establish culture in those schools because of the transient nature. You know, and if you're in larger districts that have pupil assignment that can change with shifting political winds, that can do the same thing.
And see, Nash Rocky Mount is a pretty large district. It really is. And we get kids from all the high schools in the district.
Right.
Some they apply, and then some,
right.
One of the whoever the superintendent is, he has the right to place students there.
Right.
So
yeah, I you know, some alternative programs are assignment only, but if they're designated alternate schools, which means that they have an alternative component and a placement component. So when I set the ones up in Burke County, when I was in the central office there, and we founded their alternative school, we had an alternate system there where principals could place, and we gave them a number of their own selections that they could make. And so we had some that were adjudicated there through due process, what we're going to learn about this semester. And then some were simply placed there, and then some could apply to come there.
Yeah, that's exactly how we operate. That's how we operate.
So you've got all three of those. Well, that's a really tough place to establish any kind of culture in.
I asked my principal, could we get combat pay?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's you know, you've got, I mean, some of those kids are similar, but some of them are very dissimilar. You know, and so it's a tough gig being in a place like that. There's no doubt. And so the second half of, no, excuse me, we're going to do the OMA and the skip, but in the spring, y'all will be doing the CAP, which addresses how you go about trying to establish a culture in a school to try to overcome some of those issues, because so many schools have transient natures now that you can't just assume that the new ones coming in know the deal.
Right.
You have to work very hard with them, and especially when you're so many districts now are doing assignment as well, and that kind of fouls things up.
And it's like you're constantly reteaching every day.
Right.
Constantly reteaching every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
You have to. That's why I said they're never like puppies. You have to whip them every day.
Every day.
And it's an everyday thing that you have to maintain that culture. And so, yeah, that's what the fifth of your evidences addresses, how you go about establishing that culture in your building, the things that you have to do on a regular basis, not just one time and be done with.
Mhm.
It's not a one and done. It's a constant that you have to do. I tell the story even in traditional public schools. When you get a big pupil assignment shift, you go through the same thing again.
Mhm.
I was high school principal in Charlotte, and we went through a big pupil assignment shift, which happens every 2 or 3 years in Charlotte when new schools open. And so when in '97, when Butler and Vance were going to open, Vance is now something else, Julius Chambers, that they've renamed it. But when Vance and Butler opened in '97 and we had to go through a shift, we changed about 80% of our student body out. We changed about 80% of them out in 1 year. And so we had to just basically start. We were like a startup school. We were like a new school that was just open.
Oh God.
And you had to do the same things that you had done. So yeah, having lived through that a time or two myself, it's establishing that culture is very important. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Mels 603 Monday night. With me tonight, as usual, is Dr. Josh Saint. Dr. Saint is our resident principal expert. He is currently a director in Lincoln County, for those of you who didn't meet Dr. Saint last week, but he just came out of the principalship and he supervises principals, which I think from my own experience, I'm not sure I knew a lot when I was a principal. I thought I did, but I learned a whole lot more when I had to supervise principals about the totality of the job. So Dr. Saint's job this semester is to be our resident expert here with us. I will coach your evidences this semester. And for those of you who weren't with us last week, we will have two this fall. We will complete the OMA and the skip. It's on our weekly schedule on the pacing guide. So let me go ahead and reference that. Let me share my screen. And so here's the course overview, and here's my name, and here's Dr. Saint, our contact information. And here's all the things that you need to know about the course. And then on the tab on the side over here is our weekly schedule. And so I'll pull that up right quick. Here we go. And so we will do the OMA, and you can see the pacing over on the far right, and the skip this semester. I went over the task and prompts last week. If you didn't watch the video, I'm going to go cover them again quickly here in just a minute. And so this week we start with our discussion boards, and I think who was it? Was it Jennifer that already did the first one? She's our I can see she's going to be our front row student here. She's already turned in her first discussion board. But discussion boards, I will introduce them on Monday night, and they'll be due by the following Sunday night at 9. And so this Sunday night at 9, you have this coming 6 days from now. Your discussion board 1 will be due, and then the following Sunday night, your OMA task 1 will be due. So you still got you've got 2 more weeks. You got another. You've got another week and this week, and so you got nearly 2 weeks to get that done. And so, but if you'll look at this, it tells you everything that you need to do, what your readings are in order to be able to answer your discussion boards. Now, please remember, our discussion boards are not read a chapter, write a paper. They're going out and doing things. They're coming and going to and fro. And your first week is go find copies of your school emergency plans, read school law pages 14 to 17, and assess your school plan. Jennifer did an excellent job with hers today. She just went right down the list. Here's what the school law book said should be in the plan. Here's what we had, and here's what we didn't have. She did a great job in that, and that's exactly what we're looking for. That's exactly what we're looking for. Next week, you'll look at a field trip policy, and then we'll do liability, and then observe a student due process, a discipline, interview an AP about about school discipline. So you can read all these. It's a lot of activities. This is your operations semester. You've gone through your semester with, you had your first semester was about student learning, was about academic achievement. And then you did your empowerment, your personnel semester, where you're trying to build a professional growth plan. This semester, we're doing operations. We're going to build a master schedule in the OMA, and second, in the SCIP, we're going to do a marketing plan where we operationally involve our school community and parents in our school. So this is your operations semester. Then in the next semester, you'll do culture. And then your last semester, you'll do leadership, where you put all of these together into your school improvement plan for your leadership team. So everything is planned out in terms of the semesters, and the work goes along with what we do in class. But remember, this is an operations semester, so we're going to have you out on the road doing things. You need to read through all these and start making some plans about when you can knock these different things out, because it's a lot of coming and going to and fro, interviewing people, talking with folks, sitting in on meetings, doing all of those kinds of operational things. That's what you're going to be doing this semester. Let's look most specifically at the OMA. What you need to do is gather these things together so that you can write your OMA. You need your report card. Now, if you're in South Carolina, you still have a report card. It's just instead of NCDPI, it's SCDOE. Department of Education in South Carolina, Department of Public Instruction in North Carolina. They both have report cards with all kind of student performance data, disciplinary data, your surveys, all that stuff is there. Now, in North Carolina, you have EVOS. In about half the districts in South Carolina, you have EVOS, and the other, you have student learning outcomes, SLOs. Everybody has a school improvement plan. Everybody has a master schedule. Everybody has a duty roster. That's duties during the day. Bus duty, car rider duty, lunch duty, hall duty, those kinds of things. Everybody has a supervision schedule for liability reasons. That's for your after school activities. North Carolina has a teacher working condition survey. South Carolina has a survey as well, a teacher, parent, and student survey that's in your report card for South Carolina, and everybody is accredited. Everybody has an accreditation report. We're just looking for some external information about your community for that accreditation report. And then the last thing that you have to do in the OMA Task 1, when you put all this together, is you have to find out what part your school improvement team has in building the budget for your school. So let's go over and look at that. Let's look at OMA Task 1 and see what we all have to put together for it. So let's look at our task and prompts.
Dr. Lamb, can I ask a question?
Sure.
The supervision schedule, you said that's for after school things. Is that like sports?
Yes.
Extracurriculars?
Yes.
Like how the faculty and administration, how that goes?
Right.
Okay.
And that's a great point, Jennifer. Let's stop a second and talk about that. Now, some of you in larger districts are going to have some ancillary people to help you with those as well. For example, if you were in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, you would have your resource officer would assist your school in getting extra police support for your ball games, like on Friday night. And also your district athletic director would support you in getting additional folks to man the wands, the metal detectors, like a group like Show Pros. But that's all part of it. And those people aren't there to take the place of the faculty. They're there to supplement the faculty, and especially in areas where the faculty doesn't need to be carrying a gun in a ball game, and they don't need to be on the wands. I mean, they're not qualified to do that. But that doesn't mean that you won't have faculty there, like on supervision, taking up tickets in the ticket booth, those kinds of things. And you can't just put a sign up volunteer sheet in the faculty workroom, Because what happens if nobody signs up and you don't have adequate supervision? Then there's a lot of negligence liability there. And so you got all that's got to work together. Now we're gonna let Dr. Sane speak to Lincoln County schools and how they do their supervision schedule in terms of, do they have those extra things? Dr. Sane, if you will chime in on that.
Yeah, so in Lincoln County, it's pretty autonomous. Each school does their own thing. There's very little oversight at the district level regarding that, but each principal each administrative team is responsible for that supervision duty schedule. And then if for any reason there student or faculty who don't comply with that schedule, then it comes to me, and then we figure out a plan there at the central services level. But in Lincoln County, it's all the administrative team that designs that schedule and ensures that everything is complied with.
Right. And that's what I suspected. Well, I already knew that answer, but I'm glad that he confirmed that. So in Lincoln County, it's up to the principal. You do have two different groups that will help you in Mecklenburg County, but that's only in Mecklenburg. You can't sit around and say, well, I thought my resource officer was going to get me some people on the security ones, or was going to get me some extra personnel at the ball game. No, that's only in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. That's only in the big places. Otherwise, it's all up to you, and your faculty has to do the bulk of those kinds of things. And so the problem is if you just have a sign-up sheet and nobody signs up, it's on you. The negligence is on you. School administrators since 1992, you can be sued personally for negligence, and you have to pay. This is about not losing your house. All right, so I've got two hands raised. I think Sonia was first. Sonia, go ahead.
Dr. Lamb, what about in my case, by me being an alternative school, we don't have after school activities?
You just need to tell me that. And
Okay.
Alternative schools don't do that.
No.
But their alternatives fall in the category of public separates. And so public separates have a different set of operational rules than traditional public schools do. That's why we refer to them as public separates. Now, there are some magnet schools also, let's be clear. There are some magnet schools that are public separates as well. My wife taught for 15 years at a magnet school that was designated a public separate. They did not have after school activities either. Kids went back to their home school for their activities. Now, they were responsible, however, to make sure they got on the appropriate bus to get back to their home school for those afternoon activities. So again, public sector, and you may have something like that at your school where those kids can participate in something else somewhere.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Yes or no.
Yeah, they're not allowed to go back to their base school to participate in after school activities. Once they're gone from there, they're gone.
Yeah.
So,
and that's, again, these are district by district decisions and school by school decisions. And you just have to find out what happens at my school. Now, I would suggest that you go and ask. Don't just assume. Go and ask, what are the rules for after school activities? There might be some things that you're not aware of. Make sure you go and find that out. You don't want to be responsible for something and not know it, and then then the negligence come back to you. All right, I had another hand up.
It might have been mine. I know
Hey,
our athletic secretary, she handles the all of the sporting events.
Wait a minute. So Willie,
Yes, sir.
was that you?
Yes, sir.
All right, so what was your question?
No, I was saying our athletic secretary, she handles all of the staff and personnel for the athletic events.
Okay, now please understand, Willie, that's a good point. You can delegate the activity, but not the responsibility. What does that mean? That means we can have the secretary do the schedule, but if something goes wrong, is that secretary, or are they the responsible person? That would be no.
That's the person that should be there, right?
The administrator is the person responsible. You can delegate administrative tasks to non-administrators, but that doesn't absolve you of that responsibility or liability. I don't suspect what would happen in the case where the secretary does the schedule and a teacher doesn't show up. Who would be responsible to go to that teacher and say, you didn't show up and do your duty? Do you think the secretary is going to be able to do that? That would be a no. That would be
That'd
you.
be the principal.
That is correct. You have to be careful. That's just like Tyler, did you have a question? We're going to get you in just 1 second. That's just like with fundraising. You can delegate the activity of fundraising to your PTA, but you better understand you're still responsible and liable if they steal the money or don't deliver the products or the money gets missing or whatever. It's still on you. And you will at best be demoted, at worst be fired for failure to maintain fiscal control. You better understand that while your school may have operated this way for 100 years, first time something goes wrong, it comes back to you as the administrator. As we say in the business, it's all fun and games till somebody gets their eye put out. And then it doesn't matter that we've been doing this forever. It's you, the secretary. We can't go to court and say, well, the secretary was responsible for this. And the first thing the judge would say is, secretary's not a school administrator. We're not paying her to be responsible for this. So you better understand that you got to track these things down. And again, I'm going to say for the third time, you can't let people volunteer for this stuff, because if they don't volunteer and you don't have adequate supervision, you're going to lose a negligence case, and it's going to cost you your house. Now, a rule of thumb, we're going to shift gears. Tyler, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I put you off. You have a question?
Yeah, I do. So I'm in a high school and we're bringing back Smart Lunch this year. So do I need to put every supervision schedule we have, or just pick one and use it? But when we do our masters, okay.
Now, your Smart Lunch, tell me about that quickly.
So basically, we're going to have two periods for lunch. Students that have a 70 or above, if that teacher gives them permission, they basically get an hour for lunch. There's several places they can be. They can go to the JV gym to be active. But the other students, they have to go back for 30 minutes of tutorial, and teachers can reteach. They can pre-teach. They can work on really anything they feel necessary for that student. And then they get 30 minutes for lunch and 30 minutes for that Smart Block tutorial. So we're going to have teachers in different parts of the building doing that. We also have game duties. We have, I mean, you name it, we have it. So.
Yeah. So now, now you're at Alexander Central. This does not include the old Myers Park deal where you can leave campus, I'm hoping. All right. Part of the problem is going to be, I can already tell you, with Smart Lunch, I get it. This is a way to meet one of the levels of MTSS on that 30 minutes of reteach. I get it. But what happened at Myers Park for years, and everybody knew it, that it went on at Myers Park forever, until 3 kids got killed in a car wreck. That hour lunch, kids would just load up in cars and leave campus. Because they hadn't worked out a supervision schedule. And I thought you had them, Nat thought, Tanya had them, Carly thought Laura had them, and we didn't know where they were. And they were just going out in the parking lot and getting in their cars and driving off to lunch. Because they weren't on anybody's roster. They got to be right here. Now, for liability's sake, the law says that they got to be on somebody's roster. Somebody's got to be expecting them every hour or every time block, every day. They've got to be on somebody's roster to be there, so that somebody who is a paid staff member, a paid professional, is in charge, or they are under their supervision. what we call in loco parentis, in place of the parents. Somebody's got to be in charge of these people. Now, the whole deal at Myers Park, I mean, this went on for, I don't know, 15, 18, 20 years, where kids were leaving every day for their hour lunch block, and everybody knew it until 3 of them got killed one day. And then all of a sudden it was, how could this have happened? Well, just absence of supervision. We always did it this way. Now, I'll tell you this, and I'm going to have Dr. Sane chime on this as well. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over the course of 17 years, 14, over the course of 14 years, I had 5 principalships over the course of 14 years. And every one of them that I went to, within the first day that I was there, I got a call from somebody at the central office who said, "Hey, Dale, let's have lunch." Now, the first time that happens, you think they actually want to have lunch. Stupid boy. They don't want to have lunch. They will show up at your building and they will have a book. It'll be about this size. And we now in the business refer to it as the book. And what that book has in it is all the things that have been going on at that school that are against the law, that might have been going on for the last 10, 15, or 20 years, but you must now fix today, because we have a new administration there and it must be fixed today. And I'll give you a random rundown of some of the things that I had to do. At a junior high, I had to stop one of the coaches from driving the activity bus home every day and use it as his personal vehicle. That was at Eastway Junior High in Charlotte. Absolutely. At one of them, I had to stop a English teacher from teaching photography every day. Photography had been in career and technical education, and it had been stopped 8 years previously, and they had continued to let this fella teach photography and use an English position. So sophomore English had 40 students per class in it. That had to stop that day. I had a coach who had taken over the booster club and was writing booster club checks. A school employee writing booster club checks. That would be a no-no. I had an assistant principal who was had a key to the drink machines and was taking the money out of the drink machines and was buying drinks from Walmart and filling up the machines, and the Pepsi man was livid. That had to stop that day. And I can't tell you the number of, now there's some instructional things as well, but we've already covered instruction improvement. I'm talking about operational kinds of things. I was at a school where everybody signed up for after school duties and not one person ever showed up. That had to stop that day. Dr. Sane, you might want to share some of your things from the book.
Probably the biggest thing that I dealt with, so in my 2 principalships, was teachers selling things like having private businesses within the school,
Yes.
soliciting people or their parents to buy things. And then when I was given both principalships, I had a list of things to do, and on both of them was to stop the PTOs from embezzling the money.
Yeah.
That was on both lists.
Yes.
And then it's surprising you mentioned the buses, and that was also to make sure that our bus drivers were following the bus routes.
Yes.
So they were wasting a lot of gas money because it was an easier route, but it necessarily wasn't the shortest route. So those were the buses, and PTOs or PTAs were the 2 big hot topics for me.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to kind of piggyback off that one?
Yeah.
So we're not starting Smart Lunch for at least 2 weeks. So it'll be, I mean, we have a rough sketch of supervision schedule, but we're gonna have to change some things during that. So since I'll be done with my task 1 before we start, do I need to include that?
No, it's, Nostradamus here thinks that this will be gone before long, before cold weather. We'll have rethought this before cold weather, I suggest.
Dr. Lamb,
It never goes well. I'm just going to tell you right now, it never goes. Yes,
Is that layout gonna be is that layout that you just posted in the Blackboard?
yes, everything's in the Blackboard.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out where it is.
Master scheduling, master scheduling PowerPoint under OMA. It's in a couple different places. That's a good question. Let me go back to that. All right, so let me get out of that one. Master scheduling. This is what you're looking for right here. This is what you will need. And so I have that under the session that we did last week, right there. I also, if you can't find it there, we're in a different week and you're looking for it. I think I also might have put it. No, I didn't put it there. It's under last week. It's under Zoom session 1 is where you will find that. But that's a good question. Let's see, course. Yep, that's exactly where I put it, under Zoom session 1. Yeah. Back to Dr. Sain's point. Mary Kay Cosmetics. I had a real estate agent. He was forever running out during his planning period to meet clients, bringing things. Yeah, it's okay to use the OMA example as a guide. Absolutely. That's a good question, Anisha. Fundraisers from their kids' school, putting them in the lounge, you name it, you know, selling second jobs, selling stuff, or running out. But that's what we're talking about here, is all of those kinds of things you're responsible for that you have to stop, and things that have been going on forever. Nat says grandma was a Mary Kay lady, pink car and all. But you know, all of those kinds of things, you're responsible for all of that stuff, because of the liability of those kinds of issues. And so you stop the things that are outside of your purview. You got to stop those. But the bigger issue is you got to control those things that are within your purview. You know, you got to have solid plans, supervision. Now let's talk about duty rosters. Duty rosters are who's supposed to be where, when, and why during the traditional day. And one of the things that we get into is, especially when kids cut class and go to the gym, or they stay in the lunchroom for multiple lunch shifts, is we get out of balance with our 1 to 45. The supervision in non-classroom settings during the school day, the legal standard is you must have 1 adult for every 45 students. That is the legal standard if you go to court. It's also in the state board legislature. You'll find that as well. But I'll just go ahead and tell you, it's 1 to 45. So if you've got 450 kids in your lunchroom, you need at least 10 faculty members in there. Now, it's not my first day. I'm not going to tell you if you had 100 in there, 2 kids really want to fight bad enough. What I'm telling you is, when we go to court, we're not going to lose a negligence lawsuit for inadequate supervision. So the notion here is we have a lot of folks who think, well, you know, if they're going to fight, they're going to fight. But that is true. Having 10 in there or 20 is not going to stop the fight, but it's going to stop you from losing your house. And so you got to have a supervision schedule that says, if we've got 90 kids down in the gym, there better be 2 PE teachers down there with them. And we better not let kids cut and go hang out in the gym. So when we show up, and there's supposed to be 2 classes of 45 down there, but there's 700 kids in the gym with 2 PE teachers. We better not allow that to happen. We better not allow everybody to go stay in the lunchroom till they're as big as I am, eating 3 lunches in high school. You better not let that happen. It blows up your numbers for supervision. I mean, you don't have enough people to be on planning to cover other than what the bare minimum. Because every kid's got to be with a teacher every period of every day. We can't just say, well, we got this many teachers on planning, we got this many kids that can just be loose somewhere. And that's the problem with that, with those 0 periods and open lunch and all that kind of stuff is we don't really have, it's hard to have adequate supervision of these kids. And they'll be somewhere in your building or on your campus, either fighting or loving or both. And you'll be responsible for it. That's what we're talking about, is that we're trying to cut down our liability. Now, understanding there's three functions in terms of negligence, in terms of there's malfeasance, misfeasance, and nonfeasance. Malfeasance is you did the wrong thing, you knew it was wrong, but you did it anyway. And then you have misfeasance, which is you did the wrong thing, but you didn't know it was wrong. You were trying to do the right thing, but it just turned out wrong. And then you have nonfeasance, which means you didn't do anything and you were supposed to. And so that's the standards for negligence, and that's what for liability purposes. And that's what we're trying to mitigate here with these supervision schedules, with these duty rosters, with master schedules. We're trying to make sure we know where kids are every period of every day, and that there's some responsible adult that's supposed to be in supervision of them. That doesn't mean that they won't do things that we don't want them to. It means that we won't lose our house when we get sued. That's the whole notion here. And I'm not trying to be facetious or funny, and I'm not trying to scare you. This is a big part of operations, is making sure that we mitigate negligence, not only for yourself, but for your school district. You can't be costing them a bunch of money all the time. They don't like that. They get very angry at you. And so for that purpose, they hire people like Dr. Singh to supervise principals. And the majority of what he does, quite frankly, is what we're talking about, is operational kinds of things. I was in that role when I first went to the central office, just like him. That was my first role. When I left the principalship and went to my first directorship that's exactly what I did, was operations, making sure that all this kind of stuff was done, that somebody was overseeing that piece of it. And I worked my way on up and did other things, but that's what we do. And quite frankly, you need somebody young and aggressive and with a lot of energy to try to chase down all these kinds of things. That doesn't mean that Dr. Singh's not intelligent, but what it means is it takes a lot of time and effort, but you got to have all these things buttoned up. If you don't, the liability for your district is just overwhelming. And we've got insurance, but if it's negligence, your insurance doesn't help a lot. You have to pay out settlements. Your insurance only covers you if you're trying to do the right thing. If you're doing negligent things, your insurance just won't help you out.
Dr. Lim, you mind if I chime in here?
I want you to.
So today was the first day here in Lincoln County, and for the past 3 weeks, I have stressed you have to have a dismissal plan, especially K-8. Where is the most time our teachers become negligent is when they're tired at the end of the day and when they're supposed to get on the right bus or when they're supposed to get into the right car. And I just got home right before the class started because 4 schools lost kids. And all 4 schools, when asked, why don't you know where they are? The teacher said, I just let them go. All 4. So again, what you're saying is so true. And as an administrator, that's where we focus on, because that's where if we're negligent, it's a spiral downward. And if there's not pre-planning, you have to have a plan for the pre-plan to make sure the plan goes. And there are times when you become an administrator, there are times when you got to protect, and it's dismissal is the first one. High schools, there's a lot of transition, making sure they're going where they're going. But for K-8, it's making sure they get on the right bus or in the right car.
Mm-hmm. And that they stay with you all day. Yeah. So, I could tell a long-winded story about that one, but so what we're doing in the first task of the OMA is we're doing an internal context of our school that includes all those things. It includes our academic achievement, everything that's on your state report card, teacher quality, academics. You're doing an audit of all your federal programs. Again, go back to that, share my screen, go back to that PowerPoint on master scheduling. Here are your federal programs right here. They come first and we're going to audit them. And so what are they? Exceptional children, 504, Intervention team referral kids, they get the same protections. Your Title I, and whether you're a school or a program, if you've got that. English is second language, and it doesn't matter which, acronyms you use, ESL, ELL, ELP, ESA. Doesn't matter. Academically gifted and CTE, those are all, so you got to do an audit of those. Make sure that you know what you got at your school and what kids are supposed to get, and are they getting it? And so if you go through these, and then you got to follow your state law. What are your state laws? Class size limit, highly qualified, hours, minutes of instruction, planning time, duty-free time, teacher work days. Board of Education policies comes next when scheduling the school. Daily schedule, are you doing a block, a flex, AB day, traditional, mosaic? How many hours of instruction, reading, math, science, social studies, language arts in the lower grades? That's decided by the local district. Special programs, what you've got and what you're going to do with those. Clubs and organizations, local assessments. Are you doing any local assessments besides the state assessments? All those kinds of things have to be factored into your schedule. And then your performance data, whether it's EVOS or SLOs in South Carolina. We need to know what teacher should be teaching what, where, and when. And then, teacher input, with student information. Teacher input, let me stop my share again. Teacher input is not, I want this and I want that, and I want this and that. Teacher input is what kids should and shouldn't be together. Those kinds of things. Teacher input's not supposed to be about, I'm on, I'll quit if I don't get last period planning. Well, let me help you get out the door here. It may work out that the last period planning is what we do, but as all of you know, everybody can't have last period planning. And everybody can't have the middle lunch shift planning so they get an extra 30 minutes in high school. Everybody can't have that. I mean, we can't have everybody on planning at one time and kids just, out like marauders. It looks like, something from a movie. We can't have Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome during school all day because all the teachers are on planning and they've just gone somewhere and locked the doors. It's one of those purge situations where during that period of time you can do anything you want to. So I mean that's the notion here. So when we go back and we start looking at our task and prompts, so what we're going to do in task 1 to put all this together, now that we've gathered all this information, contextual analysis demonstrates the understanding of district, state, federal law and structures and rules in place for students and staff. That includes critique of certain structures. And so here's your master schedule. Here's your duty roster, your supervision schedule. Here's your audit for all of your federal programs, special needs, exceptional learners, all those. That's all your federal programs. And then when we put all this together, we're going to look at what role the school improvement team has in building the local budget. Because if we go back and look at our master schedule, the school budget and the master schedule must support the school improvement plan. It is the 2 cornerstones of that school improvement plan. You worked your first 2 semesters, if you'll remember, on the app cell. You identified the gaps in learning in your building and put together a plan. That would be your academic plan in your real school improvement plan. And then you designed a professional growth plan to support that academic initiative in your second of your evidences. Now we're putting all that together where we're going to build a master schedule and a school budget that support those school improvement plan academic and personnel initiatives. It doesn't do any good to say we need to work on reading and we don't put any money in that area, or we don't schedule our school with more time for reading. What good does it do to identify our reading is our problem? And then it becomes master schedule time instead of improving, instead of moving to 120 minutes of reading instruction every day, we'll just stick with 90. I don't want to have to reschedule the school. No, your master schedule has to follow through on those initiatives that you identified when you did your academic and professional growth plan. And your school budget has to put your money where your mouth is. You know, we need resources for reading. Well, that's what we need to be spending our local money on. That's the whole notion here. Is we, you know, we can make the best plans in the world academically, but if we don't schedule our school in that direction and we don't put our money behind it, what's the chances that those things are ever going to happen? Same as my hair growing back. It's possible, it just ain't probable. Just not going to happen. I mean, we're trying to plan for success here. We're not hoping for success. During our management semester, we learn how to plan for success. I believe that Dr. Saines already mentioned that. You got to have a plan, and you got to have a backup to that plan. But just hoping something gets done, hope's not a plan. And you will not survive in this business on hope. You just won't. You know, anybody can sue anybody at any time for anything nowadays, and you know that happens on a regular basis, and you've got to be prepared. You've got to be ready to roll. All right, let me. So that's your first. Now, here's the good news. As I told you last week, my gift to you, OMA Task 2 is simply take the APTEL that you did last semester, tasks 1, 2, and 3 of the APTEL that you did last semester. Take the titles, tasks, and prompts off of it. That becomes your OMA Task 2. That's 30 minutes or less. Because we had you build that professional growth plan from an academic perspective last semester for that purpose. It wasn't something different. We take what we did last semester. We've already got that professional growth plan built. We just plug it right in, and then we move into designing a new master schedule. We don't operations. We don't tread the same ground twice. We do it one time, we set it aside, and then we put it together later on. We don't cover the same territory twice. So you've already done your academic piece. You've already done your professional growth plan. We're going to take those two things that you've already done. We're then going to put them together. And then after we get our clear context internally and externally about our school, the external context, again, is from your accreditation report. First section is on about your community, like how much, average income, average education, brief history of your school, that school profile you already did. You take and pull that together. That's your external context. Your internals on the state report card, these other things. Put all that together, figure out how much, what role your school improvement team has in determining your budget. Then we're ready to start on that master schedule, revamping your master schedule. And then boom, we're right into writing our competencies. And then we're right into the skip, and we've got some stuff already. We've already done some work on that you didn't know about as well. Boomity, boomity, boom. These going to get easier every time now, easier. We're building on the work we've already done. When we get to the last one, there's no new work in the side, by the way, because we planned ahead. We've gone in every time we've done an action plan, a marketing plan, a professional growth plan, we put it in that same graphic organizer. So when we get to the skip, we just pull the different pieces, we put all those together, boom, we're done, out the door. Simple and easy. If you plan ahead, it's easy to be planned and prepared. Trouble is when you don't do that, then you spend more time, trying to do it right the second time than if you'd just done it right the first time. And so that's what we're doing this semester. I've got a couple of things I want to cover with you. Let me check my chat right quick and make sure. Yep, that's good. Let me go back to full screen view. Let me share my screen. I've got a couple. We didn't have a whole lot under our content for this evening. I can close that one out. We can close that one out. Let's go back and look at our content for this evening. Your assessment inventory, if you want to get started, I put it again here. Please remember that 115C288, what is it? G says that twice a month you have to do a safety inspection of your building. If you're and document it, you have a written documentation of it. If that's one of our activities this semester, you can get started on doing that whenever you want to. Please remember that everybody knows you have to do a fire drill once a month, but very few people know you also have to do a safety inspection twice a month and document it. Now, again, if you don't do that, if you don't get out and document that safety inspection, or if you document it and don't do anything about it, again, that'll come under the negligence, and it'll get you. As I mentioned last week, I hate to say this, but the principal at Uvalde is now on suspension. They've moved from with pay, I believe, to without. The assistant principal's already been fired because they had been writing up a number of times when they did their safety inspection that the door to the classroom where all the kids were killed, the lock was broken, and they had not followed through to get that fixed. I hate to say that, but it's just the truth.
Dr. Lamb, real quick.
Yes.
So with that safety inspection, are you saying like right now, my assistant principal has been walking around and checking to make sure all the doors aren't dogged open, so everything is locked? Okay.
Perfect.
So there would be some documentation somewhere with that. Yeah, she would have some paperwork. Is that what you're saying?
That absolutely. That's
Okay.
That's a great one. So if your district doesn't have a form, I've made one here that has been used all over the state. I used it. We used it. We adopted it in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. So that's great. Let's go back to the law right quick. Am I still on share here? Let me go to this one. So let's look right here. Right here. It shall be the duty of each principal to inspect each of the buildings in his charge at least twice a month during regular school session. The inspection shall include cafeterias, gymnasiums, boiler rooms, storage rooms, auditory and stage areas, as well as all classrooms. Shall be for the purpose of keeping the building safe from the accumulation of traps and other fire hazards, and also just to be safe. To file 2 copies of a written report each month. Again, there it is right there. That would be 115C288D. And the reference on it is 115C525 as well. That's a separate law. Right there it is. Now, this may not have been done at your school, as I was talking about earlier. This might not have been done at your school for 100 years until you have a fire one day, or a kid gets hurt, or somebody comes in and goes into a classroom with a broken door on the lock and kills 15 people. Until somebody walks around school and finds a back door propped up at the cafeteria because it's hot in there, and walk right in, right past all the security, right through the cafeteria. It was Katie bar the door. That's what we're talking about, folks. That's why it's first and foremost in this course. It's the times we live in. There are statutes in place to address this. The problem is we just don't do them because nobody's ever done them before. And everything was all right with them. But again, until something happens and it's on your watch, and you know, it couldn't be any clearer. It's written there specifically in state law under duties and responsibilities of the principal. You don't have to hunt it. It's right there. It could not be any clearer. And when you sign that first principal contract or that AP contract, one of the things that you say is, I will uphold those laws. And that portends that you know what they are.
So this may be a silly question, but the thing about like the boiler room and stuff, I would have no idea what I was even looking for. So is it appropriate? I mean, I know maintenance departments come in, but what would I be looking for? I mean, I want to do the right thing.
All right, so right here, that's a great question. Thank you, Jennifer. So look right here under this inventory checklist, and I've got kind of an explanation on each one of them, what you're looking for. All right, so you start with your traffic control. Are your bus loading and drop-off zones clearly defined and separated from cars? The kids, you know, are cars running into the bus lot, dumping off kids so they won't have to wait in line? That kind of thing. What are you doing to check? All right, so those kinds of things. And then your surveillance, your access, your outside safety devices, two-way communication, classroom doors equipped with heavy-duty vandal-resistant locks that are operable from inside. Mirrors, doors right here. Doors to the boiler room and power supply rooms are solid with concealed hinges, pick plates, high-quality deadbolt, high-stakes security plates. Doors are kept closed and locked at all times except authorized personnel. There's nothing stored in them that's not supposed to be. Your hazardous chemicals are in a separate closet, not in your boiler room. I've had all these to happen, by the way. You opened up the boiler room and it was closer on that end of the building, and the custodian was putting supplies in the boiler room so they wouldn't have to go all the way to the janitor's closet back across the building. Chemicals stored on the floor rather than up on shelves. I've got it laid out. That's why I said you can use mine. Right
Thank
here
you.
tells you everything that you're going to be looking for. Right here on this. Again, this is the one that I developed years ago, and see them. It probably needs some updating now, but it's still pretty good.
And you said we need to do that at least twice a month?
The law says you'll do it twice a month. You just have to do one for our class this semester. But in
Okay.
real life, yeah, you got to do it twice a month. Now, please understand that you, as the new 8th assistant principal on the block, this will be your job. I can just tell you right now, you're going to have to do bus duty. And you're going to have to do, you're going to have to do all the dirty jobs. You're going to have to do them all. As I said in the town hall last week, assistant principal is a technician level job. They're going to have you doing all these kinds of things. It's going to be your duty to check the boiler rooms and do all those things. Now, the strangest thing that I ever found in a boiler room when I was doing a district inspection for the if you have any kids, if you have any schools that make the watch list either academically or safety wise, and the state comes out and does an inspection, we do, if you're smart, you do pre-inspections the same day of the week at the same time that you're expecting them to come. And you might find any potential problems at the state. You don't want the state to find them. You want to find them before the state does. And so I guess the strangest thing that I ever found in the boiler room was a 9-year-old boy. Let me say that again. I found a 9-year-old boy locked in a boiler room. His dad was the custodian and had custody of the child, and the child's school was closed that day, and so he brought him to work and locked him in the boiler room. I can't make that up. You just don't know what you're going to find. I have found chemicals in boiler rooms. I found chemicals in a cafeteria in a high school. The custodians pulled in one of those classroom dividers in the back of the cafeteria so they wouldn't have to walk across the campus to get their stuff, and had open chemicals in the cafeteria. And the kids were getting sick and complaining about the smell was the reason why I showed up to see what in the world was going on. That happened at Garinger High School. I'm not making that up. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. You better find it before somebody else like the fire marshal or the state inspector finds it, or you'll be looking for other work. And I hate to tell the rest of the story on the 9-year-old boy, but the principal had to retire. Had nothing to do, but you just can't have stuff like that. You just can't have that. I mean, come to find out, he'd been bringing the kid, and had been told don't bring the kid to school, and so he was slipping the kid in and hiding the kid, and they knew he was. But they were just, that's the kind of thing that was happening at Druid Hills.
At what point is it like not the principal's fault? You know what I mean? Like adults make decisions. Like adults make decisions. You know what I mean?
Never. It's never not your fault. I'll just tell you that right now. And then we can work back from that. If it's a one-off and this is the first time they've done it, but if there is adult responsibility, but ultimately you're in charge. You don't teach a soul as a principal. Your job is to be in charge of everybody else. it's hard to, and that's a great question. I mean, it's hard to get out from under that responsibility or that liability. I mean, again, you can mitigate it by don't delegate things to people and don't follow up on it. You can delegate the activity, but not the responsibility. If you tell people to be where they're supposed to be, you better go check to see if they're there. You know, you better be checking on the PTA and the money. You got to make sure that they're receiving that money. You need to make sure that when you're selling tickets at ball games and doing all those fiscal control things, that money gets deposited. It's not in classrooms in a desk drawer. I mean, you know, there's things that you can do. Dr. Sain's getting ready to, you know, he's getting ready to give us some clues here. He's going, you know, what he's looking for and what in terms of that question. I think that's a great question. When's the principal not responsible, Dr. Sain?
Like you said, they're always responsible unless they just don't know that truly the employee has been completely, you know, in the dark. But then again, it's still going to fall on you because you should know. That's the world we live in. And you all are, you know, administration is changing, you know, rapidly because we're in kind of a teacher shortage across the state. And a lot of times what I've been noticing with the principals that I oversee specifically is they're like, well, Dr. Sain, I can't really enforce this and that because they'll quit. And that is not a reason to allow things to be swept under the table. Yes, they will quit, and yes, you'll have a shortage, but like Dr. Lamb keeps referring, you need your job. But we have become a bit complacent with some of the things that we expect and some of the laws because we are terrified we're not going to be able to fully staff a school. And that unfortunately is just where we are, but we can't take our foot off the gas pedal with making sure that we're compliant and that our people are doing exactly what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm. I'd rather have nobody than a bad somebody. I can tell you that right now. I know that's probably not the best way to do that, but you can't, you have to set a culture in your building and you can't walk away from that culture. You have to maintain it every day. It's like Sonia and I were talking to begin with. You got to whip them every day, not just the kids. Sometimes it's the grown-ups too, every day. Please remember that you're changing careers now from working with students to working with adults. And you're the person who has to enforce all the rules and policies on with those people. I'd rather have nobody than have somebody who just defies and won't follow through. And we know that we're doing things illegally or bad or harming kids. We just can't do that. But he's right. We're in a shortage right now. But I can tell you right now, I became a junior high principal. I had 37 openings when I walked in the door. But that didn't mean we just do away with our standards. I'm not sure that I was very successful. Somebody said I was, but you know, I would be open to a different opinion on that. But now the standards were the standards, whether we had full complement of folks or whether we didn't. That just has to be who you are, or you won't survive this business very long. You just won't. It's a different job now. This is a different career. So let's look and see. We're getting in the short rows here. I can get into here just as I am paying in the background. We're near the benediction here. All right, so we've covered that piece. I had this under tonight in terms of liability. These are things that you've got to keep your eye on, and we're going to explore these. This is just kind of a laundry list. We're going to explore these, but here are some hot things that I want to make sure that we do. No Child Left Behind says children don't have to go to a low performing school, but the part that nobody understands is the persistently dangerous legislation as well. That talks about acts of crime and violence, and that counts against you. Power School, disciplinary data reporting, all incidents have to go all in there. People think that that's not true. They want to say, well, just there is no major, there is no minor. These are things that will lose you your job very quickly if you exceed your totals on crime and violence, and we'll talk about how to avoid that. If you don't put all your incidents in Power School, if you start editing them in terms of major and minor, there is no major, there is no minor. All incidents go in. We report incidents, not outcomes. Don't be that stupid person who says, I didn't have to tell that because I didn't suspend the kid. Suspension's an outcome. That doesn't, you know, Under that, if, you know, if Sonia shot me and left town and they didn't catch her and punish her, then I wouldn't be dead. That's not the way it works. We have to report all incidents. Prayer cannot be staff-led or mandated. We have to be careful with that one. That one's made a big comeback lately. We have to be real careful on that one. Student dress and publications can be regulated to avoid school disruption. For some reason, we have people who think that you can't do that. Yes, you can. Search and seizure, reasonable suspicion. There's a different standard for school staff than there is the police. Police have to have probable cause, but strip searches are not permissible, no matter, even if you do have more authority than they do. You can't be doing that. That one's made a comeback lately as well. Zero tolerance policies are still not legal. That one's made a comeback as well. Abuse, neglect, harassment must be reported to law enforcement. For some reason we think if it wasn't physical, we don't have to report it. We can investigate it ourselves. That is not true. That one, you know, I've seen too many cases lately on that one where people getting fired. I'll show you one of those probably the next week or two. FERPA, Federal Privacy Act on student records and data. That one has made a comeback as well. You know, one of the things that just like I've been asked to be involved lately at the college level with financial aid. I'm not supposed to know that stuff. That's federal privacy. And so I've had to try to explain to people, I'd be glad to do what I can, but I'm not supposed to know this stuff. We've had a lot of that come back lately with CARES money and some of these grants and opportunities and things. We got to be careful with that. Due process, we're going to learn, we're going to spend a lot of time. Substantive versus procedure. Substantive is what are the rules of due process? What are kids supposed to get? And then procedure, did we follow that substance? Did we do what we said we were going to do? Usually where we get in trouble is although this is the process we were supposed to follow, we shortcutted and didn't follow when we did our procedure. That's what gets us on due process. And then the last two, the standards are arbitrary and capricious. Arbitrary is me and Nathaniel are out back behind the gym smoking, and Dr. Sane catches us and he sends Nathaniel on back to class and he just shoots me. All right, so number one, it was arbitrary that he punished me and not Nathaniel, and two, it's capricious. Shooting me seems awfully excessive punishment just for smoking, don't you think? And so those are the two standards. And so these are the kind of the things that will get you, that will jump up and bite you. Now you'll notice I don't have anything on that list financial, because that's a different ball game on the finances. These are just things in the normal course of business that we just don't pay attention to. We know if we embezzle the money or the money gets gone or we write checks inappropriately or don't get the right purchase orders, we know we get in trouble. But I'm talking about those kinds of things that under the normal course of the day that we don't even think about that we do all the time, they're illegal and get you. So those are kind of, and those, we're going to hit every one of those this semester. I see our time is up tonight. I want to thank you all for joining us. Those of you who were with us last week, we had 7. Next week, I'll let y'all, the ones we missed Jimmy and Willie and some of you, but we'll let you introduce yourself next week. I just wanted to make sure that tonight was our big kickoff night, but we got everybody going in the right direction. We had some folks come last week. They got a head start, but everybody should be caught up now. You owe me assignment 1 in discussion board this coming Sunday, 6 days from now at 9 o'clock. You owe me the following Sunday, OMA task 1. You got 2 weeks. Everybody should be able to do it easily. And the last thing is turn-ins. Now, I've told you when stuff is due. I am not your mother. I am not going to send a note out on Monday morning saying, you didn't turn me this in or that. If you don't turn it in, we just move on. There's no penalty for late work. Just don't get behind. You're adults. You have to manage your time. I am not going to be following up behind you all the time and reminding you of this and that. I'm going to treat you respectfully as the adults and professionals that you are. I know you understand how Mels works. It's the way it's always worked. We call it gradual release. You know, your first templates for your app cell were full of stuff. And then the app tail had a little bit less. The OMA just has the outline. You won't even get a template for the skip. You know, I step back, you step forward. That's the way it goes. We're having a lot of conversations. You can ask any questions you want every night. That's why I've got an expert here. I don't know hardly anything. I'm old. but I've got somebody here who does know stuff. That's why he's here. We're here to facilitate you every week and tell you what the law is and the reality of how you manage the school. That's what we're here for. We're not going to read a whole bunch of books and stand around and pontificate and debate. This is how the behind the scenes stuff that nobody ever tells you. This is the real deal stuff here. This is what will get you promoted and make you in the name in the business, and what will get you fired. This is how the real world works. This is grown people talk here. We're not talking, theoretically here. This is grown people stuff. This is how school really works. And that's what we want you to take this as, us facilitating you. And we can have conversations. Don't ever stop and where, should I ask this question or not? And there are no dumb questions, just dumb people who won't ask questions. This is how you learn about how to go in and step in and convince somebody that you can step into a role of authority. This course will help you more than any other course in terms of being able to convince somebody that you're not going to do what Barney did. You know what Barney did? When Andy, in the first season of Andy Griffiths, when Andy had to go to Raleigh, and as soon as Andy left, what did Barney do? He deputized Otis to town drunk and gave Gomer a gun. I mean, you got to convince somebody that you are a quality person, that you're a fully formed adult, that you know how things work, and that you can be trusted to be in charge of things. That's the operational piece, folks. I mean, I know plenty of folks that are smarter than me, and you do too, but I wouldn't give them the keys to anything. That's the way the world works. So we're going to prepare you, hopefully, through these conversations and the materials that we have for you. And this is, again, it's grown people talk. Sometimes you might get your feelings hurt. That's part of the process. Dr. Saint, I'm going to let you close this out tonight. Again, I appreciate you being with us. Folks, it's a big benefit having somebody that's living the life every day to be with you and share their knowledge with you. And I appreciate him for being with us.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what you said. I mean, some of the things we've already talked about, I wish that I would have known going into my first AP interview. I mean, this is the stuff that's going to get you a job. This is the stuff that will get you in the top 3. And this is going to change your careers. But this truly, I mean, instructional leadership is great. Being able to know the standards is great, but being able to keep kids safe and keep your employees safe, that's the name of the game. So it's this is the course that'll do it for you. It's going to be the one that's going to help you become an administrator. So
all right, we have hands raised and we'll answer questions going out the door tonight. All right, who first question?
Do we need to respond to the discussion postings of others?
I don't care what they think. I only care what you said.
Okay.
And I'll tell you if it's good or bad. Again,
Okay,
you might
thank
get your
you.
feelings hurt, but no, you don't have to respond to anybody else's. No.
Thank you.
You know the opinion of 1,000 idiots is still just the opinion of an idiot, don't you? That's what we know in operations. We follow the law. Next question. That's a great question. We don't have any others. Well, I've had the time of my life. I've never felt this way before. I swear it's the truth, and I owe it all to you. Who knows what movie that's from?
Dirty Dancing, my favorite.
You know that was it next weekend. I'm not there tonight. I'm in Lake Norman tonight, but I'm normally coming to you from Lake Lure, right there at the resort where they filmed that. That's my other place.
We're about an hour away.
So that's where I'll be there next week probably, but I'm in Lake Norman.
I had a question.
Oh yeah, they're having the Dirty Dancing festivals next weekend. It's gonna be great. Got to come.
Is it really?
It's Dirty Dancing Festival. You got to go. It's a Grumman Ball Resort. Can't
I
miss
heard
it.
that you also dance with they do the watermelon thing, all like dance and all that, right?
Do it all. We do it
I had a
all.
question.
It's great. Any other questions?
I had a question,
before we
Dr.
go? Yes.
One. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, I was saying, what if the principal had the right to let the janitor allow the kid in the library, in the main office? He still would have been in trouble for that as well.
Oh yeah. You can't have kids that aren't on your roster in your building.
Okay.
then it wouldn't matter where the kid was. You know, we have to be responsible for every kid, but we can't just be letting kids that don't even go to our school on our campus. We can't assume, the district can't assume the responsibility for them. That kid was in school in Cabarrus County. He was not even, didn't even belong to that district, and he was in our building. Oh my Lord, the liability of that. And then, of course, the mother was estranged from the father and found out that he had locked their kid in the boiler room. I'm gonna tell you what, before that one got done, money changed hands and it got ugly. But it wasn't just being in the boiler room. If he'd been sitting in the front office, you can't do that.
Okay.
We can't assume responsibility for a kid that's not on our roster. It's a great question. Thank you, Willie. All right, we'll see you next Monday at 7. Good job tonight. What an enjoyable group. Good to see you. Good night.